Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bay Area Content Marketing Meetup. Today we have Jeff Coyle, co-founder of MarketMuse. What is Jeff going to talk about? So, as we were just discussing, AI is a very prominent topic that everyone is interested in. Jeff is going to detail practical applications of AI for determining when you can win with individual pages, when you need a small collection of pages, and when you need to build an entire infrastructure to have a meaningful ROI with content. You'll get actionable strategies for data-informed predictions that can be used when requesting budget and setting performance expectations internally or with clients. Jeff is a multi-time presenter with our group. So Jeff, thanks for being here, and take it away.
Awesome. Yes, that was a great summary. Perfect. Perfect. Like I wrote it. Thanks, Dennis. And I'm so happy to be here with this group and just hearing all the stories and how people are getting involved in thinking about AI, trying to go from, maybe AI wannabes to AI enabled, and then, potentially we're going to start seeing businesses that are AI native. And that's something that I am really passionate about. And it's something that MarketMuse was from day one, and that now is about 8 years. So my background's in computer science. I was into building search engines in the late 90s, mostly intranet ad servers. I built a search engine that led to delivering leads for software companies. And that was a big part of kind of the start of my career. I also worked with a major publisher who you may be familiar with, TechTarget. It's actually where I, connected with Dennis long ago. I worked in the search space as a search engine optimization professional, but also always connected to demand generation, lead generation, and revenue generation, really. And what I do now is I build technologies that help content marketers, search engine marketers, agencies, e-commerce teams get return on investment for their content. So knowing how to build content, when to build content, and why. And the reason why that's relevant today is because you can use technology that's available now and has been available for a long time, either at the page level, like Dennis mentioned, at the site level or the collection level, to begin to get more predictive about the content that you create. And so it doesn't have to be a black box. You don't have to recommend maybe that this is going to work. You can get a little bit more prescriptive with what you create, what you update, and justify the budgets and the investments for the content that you create on your site or for your clients' sites. All right. So first, let's talk about AI. Let's talk about natural language generation. I wish I'd only been looking at this for 3 weeks. I've been, fortunately or unfortunately, thinking about natural language generation for, about 15 years, and building in this space for more than 6. What you commonly see with today's technology and the technology that's to come in 2023 in content is thinking about ways to build things like content briefs, ad copy, short-term content that's not going to be there forever. So whether that be in a newsletter, in a social media approach, subject lines, titles, short form, and now you're starting to see many more applications in long form. And what that is leading to with the democratization of AI, which is what I reference as OpenAI's launch of ChatGPT, is really bringing that to the masses, is people finally taking a sharp eye to prompt engineering, guides, thinking about quality and thinking about quality seriously, and then trying to think about how this can influence my processes and business rules and organization level rules. So very, very important also is that artificial intelligence is not equal to natural language generation. So that means that artificial intelligence, there are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of different branches of artificial intelligence. Even within natural language generation, there are many, many branches of types of generation, whether it be the difference between summarization, extractive summarization, which is reading something and writing an abstract, extractive summarization, you're reading something and taking chunks of it and representing the summary. So even within each little piece, there are a lot of subsections. And so one thing for your clients and for your, internal teams is, hey, folks, ChatGPT doesn't equal AI. Right now in the world, the democratization of OpenAI and ChatGPT, a lot of people think that AI is ChatGPT and that ChatGPT is the only large language model that exists. And it is just general. There are no specific instruction-based AI, but There's hundreds of commercial examples of instruction set specific, use case specific AI that you could be bringing to your business right now. And so my job is advocating for, hey, get into the details. What are the things and what are the parts of your processes that could be helped by this? And let's go find those things. It might involve training an existing production quality large language model like ChatGPT, or it could be something else. Even within Google's walls and within OpenAI, there are hundreds and hundreds of different branches of artificial intelligence that are having a major impact on business right now. So when we go back, though, looking at the history of natural language generation, it's really the history of SEO, too. It's people trying to build lots of pages. And I love this little example about, this was a version of natural language generation that existed many, many years ago. And, it might look like Mad Libs to you. It's actually one of the most common mistakes about how large language models like ChatGPT work. Guess what? They don't work like Mad Libs. They actually can't do Mad Libs unless they're really specifically instructed to do those things. So if you expect ChatGPT to build templates, you better recognize that you're going to have to build a trainable template generator and different things like that. It's not going to do those things. And so a lot of applications that we're seeing, people aren't really computing what a large language model actually does. And that's another talk for another day. But I surely will point you to those things, and I have those relics all over the web. Most important thing is that natural language generation has been around for a long time. And your use case, most likely the use case for your site and your client's site does exist in using AI for your specific use case. It may not be ChatGPT. I know everybody's like, wait a second, I thought this thing was supposed to be a Swiss Army knife and do everything. No, it's not. I mean, even within Google, they have programs like there's one called Minerva. It does complex mathematical equations that you haven't seen since college, right? I mean, there's really, really specific instruction-based use cases that are critically important to understand. As questions come in, if any of them are relevant, just interrupt me because I'm not watching that right now. I see the chat bubbles and I get all nerved. So important piece of this is that NLG hasn't just come out. This isn't the first time people have come out. I launched a product in open form natural language generation over 3 years ago, and then again 2 years ago. It unfortunately failed terribly because it had beat this market and it was a little bit too expensive to purchase as well as for us to maintain. Now, with fractions of a penny, you're talking about the speed of innovation. Fractions of a penny can produce what would cost $20 to $30 2 years ago, right? Now that's the change. But recognizing that there has been applications to natural language generation for many, many years will get you to the point to you say, wait a second, this use case can be solved with AI, but it might just not be this AI. Let me start looking around at other ways to do this. Grammarly, for example, is a big thing. Image captioning, computer vision. Computer vision means looking at an image and saying what it is. There's tons of different types of AI, and then they're being able to branch to natural language generation. So be thinking about your use cases, and this is going to be tremendously relevant to today's talk, where we're talking about you breaking down your entire content lifecycle and examining how manual tasks could be improved with AI. The answer to the question, though, is it's probably not ChatGPT that's going to solve those problems. It may be something else. It may be partially a large language model. It might not be that one. But the modern world that we're living in, where every month 6 years of innovation happens right now, which is how it really feels if you're in this space, and I know that everybody feels that, it does tell the story that you're going to be able to find something, or you're going to be able to build something simply to innovate any workflow, any specific workflow, any workflow maybe where you're bringing your own expertise. Those are the ones that are going to be the most amazing. And those will be the ones that I'll talk about today a little bit in detail. Again, though, democratization of natural language generation, that means y'all have access to ChatGPT, or everybody does. And plumbers are talking about it at bars to their bartenders, real experience that I had. And doesn't mean that this hasn't just come out. There's a lot of people thinking about this. There's a lot of spaces that have always, and you can't read this, but what this is telling you is that there was natural language generation applications as early as 2007. A stat sheet, which became, I believe, Stats LLC, was trying to do and cover sports outcomes so that they could write articles on, in this case, NFL partners, stat-based templated content has been around and on the web since the late 2000s and early 2010s. So you might have read that, the Green Bay Packers beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 21-14, and this quarterback had a great day, and this is the stats that they had. You might have read that early on in NFL licensed content via products like Automated Insights. Yahoo was the first kind of major media company who took an interest in this and started doing draft reports, game recaps. And why did they do this is key, right? They weren't able to cover with humans at the time. They weren't able to cover all that they wished to cover by just typing into computers. This is important later. So critically, this weren't able to cover everything. And this was a solution that got all that information out to the world. All right. Then this moves on. You have business intelligence, you have financial data, you have AP, Associated Press is building out AI implementations. Primarily, it's modified templates that are taking data sets and it's writing template based. That's that Mad Lib stuff, right, that we were talking about. But they were adding some flavors of rule-based changes. So they were saying, hey, if this is a commodities market data set, here's some rules to account for the fact that the commodities exchange is different than the securities exchange, right? And they would write different rule-based outcomes. So this is where I got into this space, right? I had always wanted to do this for SEO purposes. I had websites with millions of pages that were generated with databases. I wasn't calling it NLG at the time. I had a search engine that would produce search results pages and get those indexed by organic search so that I could better generate leads for B2B technology companies. Those are versions of natural language generation, but I wasn't ever solving problems like AP was, like Yahoo was, where there was no coverage of these sports. Now there is coverage. And that was when I got exposed to it, was with the Washington Post, and they had a product called Heliograph. It's with an F if you want to look it up. And what they were thinking about were very similarly situations where they couldn't cover the news the way that they felt that Washington Post should cover the news. And I remember listening to the principal AI scientist from Washington Post say, yeah, we were looking at the coverage of the elections, both state, local, and federal, and we covered, and I don't know the exact number, but it was something like 8% of all elections. But with Heliograph, we can cover 100% of all the elections. And then we looked at the Olympics and we said, we only can cover the popular sports. About 11 to 12% of the athletes get their appropriate coverage. But now with Heliograph, we can cover all the sports. And I was like, oh, wow, I've got to do something. I've got to merge SEO with this. This is going to be huge. This is going to be a big deal. And I remember sitting in Las Vegas at the Intelligent Content Conference when my brain exploded and said, oh, I can make people hit more home runs with content if I do this right. And the most important thing there is people started getting it industry by industry and use case by use case, whether it be to help them write video game text, whether it be to do business BI applications for data analysis. And then since 2018, the rise of large language models, things that you start seeing in your day-to-day, and maybe you don't recognize it, like Alexa voice search, Google Smart Compose when you're typing and it predicts the next words. Those are all applications of natural language generation. Right now, what you're seeing, though, is something really special. It's open form large language model development, but it's still predictive and it can still be shaped by your knowledge and your expertise. And it's going to be shaped in the next few months to years. Actually, nobody should say years. We should only ever say months right now. It can be shaped in the next few months by people fine-tuning and tuning those technologies, or even just doing it with prompt engineering and better prompts to specifically answer questions and innovate on specific use cases. I've said a lot, right? But the basics are people have been trying to write lots of content for a long time in a lot of different ways. And large language models can present the situation where we can start building lots of content really quick. And I'm here to tell you, don't do that until you start listening. Start listening to the fact that it wasn't a good idea for you to launch tens of thousands of pages yesterday before this existed. It's really not a good idea for you to do that today unchecked. If we've learned anything from demand media, sorry if anyone's a demand media person, or if we've learned anything from the massive or macro SEO movement of the early 2000s, which was the type of situation where a popular pizza chain all of a sudden overnight has 50 pages that were all templated for each one of their branch locations. They were all low quality. Or realty companies, or the footer of travel sites when it says, when you're in Atlanta, make sure you go to the aquarium. It's 0.2 miles away, right? You can create a lot of low quality content with natural language generation. But the outcomes are not going to be successful for you, and they're not necessarily business appropriate. And that's what really we're focused on today, is how do we make sure that the content we create is going to be successful using artificial intelligence, picking more winners with the content that we create, because this is the reality before NLG. This is the reality when I look at thousands and thousands and thousands of websites from medium to large size content teams to understand how frequently do they produce content that's successful. And across with that cross section, the average is about 10% efficiency. That means I create 10 content items on my site or do 10 content updates, and only one of them is successful in achieving its goals to create recurring traffic with organic search, right? This is terrible for so many reasons. First of all, you've got 9 units of content that you've created and completely wasted that if you expect there to be traffic to those. But also your reality about how much content really costs is way off. Because if it costs, for each content item, let's say your all-in cost is $1,000, well, it actually costs your business $10,000 to create something that's successful. And if one piece underperforms, that cost of all of that content is net going up. So what's going to happen right now? And what's happening across the world is people are generating 10 times, in many cases, the content that they once were, because they are equivalently inefficient. The amount of garbage content, the amount of unsuccessful content is spiking through the roof at many organizations. And what happens is the sites start to be viewed as being both inefficient and ineffective and not helpful. And over time, this will lead to bad situations from an organic search perspective, and for the legitimacy of your programs internally when you're asking for budget to write all these content items. Because you publish 10,000 items, why on earth would we start spending $1,000 again for the content that you're creating? So many different challenges. So it's really, really critical that you start thinking about content efficiency, how much content you're creating, and start breaking down your process so that you can get this number to 30, 40, 50% as soon as possible. Because then every action you do with your content, every action you do with artificial intelligence is going to have a more meaningful impact at the bottom line. Because you're thinking, what content should I create? How much content do I need to cover this like an expert would? And that's a different way of thinking. That's starting to think like the early pioneers in NLG that had a reason why they were implementing it. And really start to think, doesn't NLG and doesn't my perception of AI, doesn't it lead to more of this? Doesn't it lead to duplicated, the perception of rewritten, derivative, aggregated, maybe over-optimized, poor UX? I steal this phrase from the world of information retrieval, but information gain, as has been stolen and co-opted by content marketers, means I read this content item and the topic that it was focused on, the reader has more information in their brain after having read it. They feel good about having read it. It's actually an information retrieval term that I love that it's been co-opted. But you have content that's actually not providing any unique value. It's thin, it's not exhibiting expertise, or it's topically misaligned for your site or your site section authoritativeness. Now, if you've been following the search engine optimization world of the last 5 years, but it's actually been about 15, they want you to write high quality content. And the way that you may have heard the phrase EAT, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. Well, in response to the coming onslaught of all of this, they've added a fourth letter, and it's experience. So you've got trust. Initially, they tried to find trust through just links. Over time, they realized that wasn't going to work all that well. So they had to do authority. They had to say, is this site an authority? And they were like, site level authority doesn't work. We need topical authority. And we need that at the site section level and the page level. So we can say, okay, well, Johns Hopkins, yeah, their main site is an authority on medical topics, but their careers section isn't an authority on these topics. And then they said, wait a second, people can manipulate that. We need expertise on our content. We need to understand what it means to be an expert on a concept. Now, with AI, we're thinking, oh gosh, we have to actually exhibit our experience on the topic through our content or our client's content. So when you think about what you might perceive as a great AI project, generating tons of content, how much of an impact might that have if only 5 to 10 of your pages amongst the 1,000 you publish actually exhibit expertise, contribute to your exhibition of experience, and illustrate authority? The downstream impact to your business, if you get caught up in this buzz, is going to be devastating. And the output is going to be these things, right? You aren't making justifications. If you're building lots of content unguarded, you're not going to really think that there's a lot of value to going back and updating existing content to make it relevant for today. Updating existing content to make it appropriate for today's intents. It's not going to have the impact when someone reads it that you desire. And then the outcomes, whatever those might be, whether it's leads, whether it be engagements, conversions, or sales. When your content stops telling a story and it stops telling the story of your site's expertise, these things will start happening. And what really I'm talking to this group today is to start being the advocate for making sure every page has a purpose. Every page needs to have a purpose, and that purpose might not be absolutely, this is going to generate lots of traffic, right? We've got to be thinking about, does this page contribute to our site exhibiting expertise? It may be a generated page. It may be supported or enabled by a generation, and then I go in and I improve it using the stuff in my brain. And I can be any one of you, or it can be any resource that you're talking about. But does this page contribute to exhibiting my expertise? Does it contribute to illustrating that I have experience and that I'm an authority on this topic? If I can do that and use artificial intelligence as part of those processes, I become superhuman. If I don't, and I cut corners, I'm not superhuman. I could actually put my business or my client at risk. And that's the spirit to take out of here. If we think about all of these processes and revving them up and making each one a superhuman state, we can win. The moment that we believe that it's an easy out and we cut corners, we put the whole business at risk. There's a chunk of content on our site that's low quality, can tank the whole site. Just put that in your brain, your client's brain, everybody's brain. One situation where you artificially state experience, inauthentic experience communication, puts the entire corporation at risk whether you're the largest business in the world or the smallest. And that's not what you want to be as you escort artificial intelligence into your organization or your client's organization. You want to bring with you the fact that you want this mass of content to be the thing that actually leads to us being the expert on this topic. And that's how you can do it. And that's how you can do that right now. And it's just, sometimes it's about changing the way we think about the concept, because just because it reads well doesn't mean it's high quality. And that's what you can get out of artificial intelligence today. If you've seen the article on Washington Post of all things today about this, I'm not going to get into the details, but it's horrifying. You would read that and it looked great. And it reads well. I like to do this with sports because it was the first kind of major application of NLG. Ask a large language model, give you sports statistics. By the way, that's like completely not asking it to do something it doesn't do. It'll give you wrong sports statistics, but if you didn't know, you'd read it and go, oh yeah, cool. Dennis won the Conn Smythe Trophy in 2020, but he didn't. Dennis did not win, but someone named Dennis could have won it, right? If you don't know it, that content item could be giving bad facts. It could also not be producing outcomes that we've talked about. So making sure that every piece of content has a purpose will then bring change to the organization, right? We're building this piece of content. Oh, I got a little radiation there from someone. Mail is big content. So understanding what you have is that first step. Let's look at our existing content inventory and let's think, where do we have strength? Where are we existing? Where's our existing content exhibiting expertise? Commonly, this comes out of a content inventory at your organization. So it may provide insights as to, we've got this much coverage or breadth of coverage. You may be doing subjective evaluations of depth of coverage. So quality, comprehensiveness, how many long form content items you have. You may also be looking at secondaries. You'd be looking at performance, conversions, etc. We've got to understand where we have great coverage, great breadth and depth of coverage, quality and comprehensiveness, in order to be able to say, here's where we need more, here's where we have success, and we can take advantage of our existing power. That's a big piece of getting, the outcome that I want you to walk away with today is I want to be able to see a few ways that I'm going to produce 10 articles and 3 to 5 of them are going to be successful, not just one, right? Being able to understand who you are today and where you have authority and you don't is critical there. I always use this fun example of a B2B technology company, and they came to me and said, we need to increase leads 30% across these 2 product lines. And my response to them was, well, yeah, this one is going to be really easy. We only need to produce about 20 pages and update about 15. And it's going to get you that 30%. This other one, you got to do about 180 new pages and update about 60. And obviously the company did the easy one. And they're like, yeah, we'll get to that other thing next year. But you've got to understand who you are to understand what you need to be. Because you can go write the best article ever written about the brand new iPhone. This isn't the brand new iPhone, but you can throw it on your site. It doesn't mean that your site's going to rank for the brand new iPhone. But you can go throw that on CNET or The Verge, and it has a chance because they have a history of performing well with content like that, with reviews, with phones, with Apple products, other products, right? That you probably don't have. So you don't have that breadth of coverage, the depth of coverage, the quality of coverage, and that momentum. And you also don't have the exhibitions of expertise or signals outside of your site, people pointing to you, links that say this is the authority for reviews. This is the authority for Apple products that you would need. And that combination of concepts gets you to being able to have that great page succeed. Okay, why are you telling me this, Jeff? Because you might think you can go write an article using AI about the Apple iPhone and throw it on your site, and that's going to have incremental value. It probably won't. It may actually hurt you. So misuse of this technology, doing it in a way you wouldn't have done it previously, may be counterproductive. Understanding who you are and where you can contribute is going to be the productive path. And you can also use these technologies or be thinking about situations like, Okay, well, I can go publish. Let's say I publish 50 more articles or 1,000 more pages with artificial intelligence. Well, is this artificial intelligence going to tell me how to link them together naturally or not? What happens if you put a bunch of pages out on your website and they're not linked together? It's really odd. It's really weird. In SEO, they call them orphan pages. You don't want that. Or one-in-ones. One-in-one means you can only get to it from one link on one page, and it's typically an archive or a site or a site map, right? Where are you gaining and losing authority in a key area? Well, if you've got lots of content going out that's low quality, you may be getting false positives. You may not see the value in that noise, right? The value of growth. You may have a lot of noise that's causing problems. Do you have clusters of content? Are you building content along a buyer journey and there's still stuff missing? And you still think that you should perform with your guides or with your middle of the funnel content, but you've got lots of stuff missing. You've got gaps in your jaw, in your mouth. You know, imagine that your teeth, you're actually missing teeth that would tell the story of that entire exhibition of expertise. And those are the things that you should be looking to answer with artificial intelligence. So you can actually see what's working and know why. I like to say we want to figure out the why for content with AI. What's at risk? What's fluctuating a lot? What's at risk because of competitive pressures? Where should you be creating? What you should be optimizing? What clusters should you focus on first? And being able to support that with a why. And maybe even what are my quick wins? So what is the page that if I updated it today on my site would have the most meaningful impact on my business? Those are answers that can come through applications of content analysis, content intelligence, and understanding what it means to be an expert on a concept. And that's really, really different than just blasting out lots of content. And if you do both really, really well, it can be very, very deadly. So understanding that content efficiency is part one. So please, 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 if you want to take home one to-do list, it's go look at all the content on your site or your client's site and try to understand, if you can break it down by section, even better. How frequently do you publish or update? What percentage hits your goal? And recognize that if you increase that batting average, if you can increase that number, everything else gets easier. So everything you do should be focused on that specific number. Because if I can go from 15 to 30% predictively, I can win more effectively. I can get more budget. And that's going to be, you know, something that makes it seem like a lot less of a black box. And it's going to make my projects make a whole lot more sense to the entire organization or to the client, whatever the case may be. And so you can get to the situation where you can answer quick wins. What are the quick wins? How can I achieve this specific goal through an understanding of existing authority? Understand where my risks are, or let's just say you don't have control over what gets done or what gets updated. You just have to do it. Well, with technologies that understand and can evaluate expertise, we can say, okay, well, let's put our best foot forward. Let's make sure every page we create is comprehensive. Let's make sure that it exhibits expertise. And we're going to, you know, with the plan that's been given to us, we're going to win more effectively. Because what we want to do with artificial intelligence and the takeaway, and I've broken down this one maybe into the groups, it may apply to your organization, it may apply to your client's organization. We want to see how much time are we spending on research and do a manual time assessment. Is that yielding out positive outcomes? How much time do we spend on planning and prioritization? Are we confident? And that's going to go into your hit rate, right? If that's high or low, are we confident that that's being time used effectively? Are we using the right data? Same with content briefs. If you're creating content briefs, are they causing less review cycles, right? Are they high quality? How many developmental edits? And if you're not in the editorial world, developmental edits would be where your writer gets you the draft and you are providing editor insights that require them to kind of retool or change the way something instead of just being a copy edit. You know, are you still having high developmental edits rates even when you have a briefing process? How fast are you writing or editing? And what is that publishing cycle? So imagine if you saw the purple planet here, you're going back to writing a lot if there's a feedback loop. And then how frequently are you optimizing or updating existing content? And for what purposes? And does it lead to growth, right? When I look at applications of artificial intelligence right now that are most impactful for my clients and for people that I work with specifically, it's in examining each stage and improving it with AI. And what we're seeing in the market, and if you take this seriously, the competitive advantage that you would have is that most people are just looking at the Saturn on this chart and trying to get lots of content out really fast. So the advantage of doing it slightly differently and thinking differently means you're going to be wanting to update those content items, planning and predicting which ones need to be updated, and then taking that full circle and doing that over and over again and continuously building your competitive advantage with content that exhibits expertise, provides information gain, and also kind of builds on the framework of excellence, which I would relate to expertise. And the goal here, really, if you think about that heliograph example, is to find your why. Find your why for using AI. That rhymed. It didn't mean to rhyme. But find the why for your organization. Find the Olympics, or find the coverage of elections that's appropriate for your industry or your client's industry. That's going to be the best way to get this evangelized internally. Here's some examples. I'm in a B2B technology company, and they know they have 60 to 70 industries that they service. But right now, there's no way they're going to launch 60 to 70 versions of every landing page. They can now, and they can be confident that it's going to be impactful and exhibit expertise. So they found their why. They can have industry-specific chunks of their site. Find your why might be, well, I know I want to have my exhibition of expertise cover these topics, but I couldn't possibly do it today. I couldn't possibly resource it with my existing content operations workflow, right? Those are going to be the way that you sell this internally to yourself and to your own company, to your clients' companies, is when you apply it specifically to those use cases. It can be great when you cut down your keyword research to near zero and you double or triple your efficiencies. But the best way to think about this is to try to get to that why so that you can tell that story internally, like I've told these few examples. That's what I have for today, because I wanted to leave a lot of time for questions. And hopefully this was insightful and makes you think a little bit differently about just popping in prompts and flopping out content. Thank you. Rich.
I think, Dennis, you want to moderate? There's a ton of questions in the chat. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jeff, but
oh, that's fine.
Sean Murphy has a bunch of questions. Sean, you want to come off mute, or you want me to just read some of your questions from chat?
Let's do it.
Sorry, I'll come off mute. So, okay. Jeff, can you recommend, you said there's a bunch of tools you're using. Can you recommend the 3 most effective tools and the problem you're using to solve with them?
Sure thing. So one critical use case. So I represent a business. It is MarketMuse. So I'm agnostic of MarketMuse. MarketMuse solves a lot of these problems.
Is MarketMuse a tool?
Yes, MarketMuse is a software as a service application that provides expertise-focused research, planning, prioritization, as well as optimization frameworks. We have a free version, so please go check that out. And we use our own topic modeling technology that looks to say, if I were an expert and I were covering a topic comprehensively, how would I do it, right? And I would be happy to get you the slide deck for sure. The other solutions to be thinking about for artificial intelligence, there's many, right?
I'm asking for your top 3, not MarketMuse.
Oh, sure thing. So my top 3 that use artificial intelligence specifically, or
well, just so the topic today was artificial intelligence for content marketing. I would assume you'd prepared some answers on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, for sure. No, I just want to make sure that I hit the nail, because I use a lot of different.
Yeah, no,
tools.
I get that, and we've learned your history from 1994 when the web was invented. But could we just focus on what's available today that you're using?
Sure thing. So I would be looking at a couple of use cases for this. Mutiny is a great example of personalization using artificial intelligence. If you're familiar, there's a lot of personalization solutions that one could look at to basically say, based on segmentation.
Next.
Okay, good stuff. The other solutions that that I'm experimenting with from OpenAI, OpenAI's API would be one that I would absolutely be putting on top of everybody's list to learn. It's an absolute need. You really want to understand which solutions you may be using, who all they are skins for OpenAI. So a big watch would be, is this software product, all they have is access to that OpenAI API? So that would be Jasper, for example.
So Jasper's the third?
No, Jasper is
What's the third?
Jasper is an interface for this. So it's something, it's critical in this space to be thinking about those things. Another one, no, not Jasper. Jasper was an example of the APIs, using OpenAI as an API. Third, there's some solutions that are weaving together for no code implementations. So Paragon or Zapier would be enabling you to produce fast outcomes with artificial intelligence for content applications. So yeah, exactly right. So no code. So Sean, hopefully those would be great. I think if you are looking to make impact fast, those would be great. Thanks, Sean.
All right, Mary Rose.
I see some validation there. Thank you.
I see you have a question, Mary Rose.
Thanks, Jeremiah.
Yeah, I just, hi, everybody. I'm Mary Rose McGuire. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and a solopreneur, and still just experimenting with what we've just been talking about. I'm a writer and have been a direct response copywriter. I pivoted in 2019 to becoming more of a ghostwriter, helping business owners create lead generation books. And the one thing that I actually just wanted to add to this whole conversation, if you haven't read the book Epic Content Marketing, it is an excellent book that does an overview of how to do things such as audits and doing everything that Jeff was talking about as far as knowing your why, figuring out the strategy, and figuring out the tactics to get to where you want to be. So just real quickly, one of the things that I've just recently done, because I'm still new also to the whole AI thing, is I used Jasper. What I did is I fed in a blog post I wrote, put it in there, and just asked it to generate tweets. I mean, I'm on my own. One of the hardest things for me is to keep up with social media updates. So having AI to do that has been really helpful. And I just, you can only feed at this point, like with Jasper, it's 800 words. So I had to separate the blog post because the blog post was longer than 800 words. Usually I try to aim for 1,200 to 1,400 words for my blog posts. So I do not write Seth Godin type of blog posts. I'm partially Italian, so I'm very verbose. But anyway, that's just something I saw that in the questions. People were kind of wondering how people are using this, and that's one way I do that.
Thank you so much, Mary Rose. And certainly with ChatGPT, you can get very specific with your prompts. So if you want it to be in a particular amount of a specific number of characters, if you want it to address a particular point, if you want to make sure, you can even ask it to be very antagonistic. You can frame tone. So I would be, Jasper prompting is going to be a little bit less lower capability than you might get out of a GPT-3 or GPT-3 Turbo, but that use case is great, and it can be great for generating threads, and threads can be very engaging with Twitter. So that's a great technique that I personally have used and I advise using. So you can do threading very, very successfully, and threads are huge now. Great question.
I know, Jeremiah, you had a whole bunch of comments during the talk. Do you want to share anything with Jeff?
Jeff, great job. You really helped me to think. And I'm interviewing marketers, like what are their questions? And the CMOs, the ones I interviewed, they said, I want to use these tools to predict what customers do, or I want to use these tools to predict what the market pitfalls are. But when I talk to content marketers, they're like, how do I generate content? Is it trademark? Can I use this? Am I liable? Is it accurate? Very different question set. So thank you for helping us to see all the range of opinions that we should be thinking about. I had some bombastic comments, and I acknowledge that, they are, but I think the question for the group is like, do web pages even matter if in the future customers are getting information from a GPT or a LLM? I've already reduced my Google searches for knowledge-based quests, not for real-time information.
Good point.
And so, I mean, this is such a big transformation. Like when we got mobile apps, you didn't go to mobile websites. So now mobile apps are going to be disrupted by this, or mobile websites are going to be disrupted by this. So I think we need to have a really sobering look that things are really going to change, and we just cannot put our heads in the sand. I say that with love.
Thanks, Jeremiah. I think the use cases that apply to, other areas of the business really can bring everybody to talk about stuff like that too. So knowledge-based management, making sure that you have content that represents the knowledge in your knowledge base that's available for marketers to weave into their content. It's a very common use case. If I see a support forum with lots of traffic, right? Gosh, my marketing team needs to understand how they can use that as part of their buying journey. And that's a big winner that you can learn. So understanding what information gain one has captured in that hidden knowledge base, or that unoptimized support forum, I can turn that into a couple clusters that say, here's the common questions that people have, take the power away from the forums who might be talking about the problems your products have, and give yourself that power. So I love that example.
I see Melinda has her hand raised. You want to ask a question or make a comment, Melinda?
Sorry, I was eating, so I had my microphone up. I'm going to out bombastic Jeremiah for a moment. I think it's a fantastic question, but it's been happening for a while. Google's been sucking off all the data into their own search results for a number of years now, pretty famously. So we've been facing this for a while. And if you'll forgive the subject matter for a moment, Facebook reminded me today of a post I made 12 years ago as I cleaned out my spam filter. And I said, if penis enlargers that were approved by the FDA existed, there would be no need for marketing them as much as they do. So if they really worked, if it existed and they really worked, no one would need to send out 1 million emails to describe them, because I'm telling you, that thing would go viral. So we're back to the same thing. Are you building a product people give a shit about? Are you solving a problem people care about? Ultimately, that is the best thing. And in Silicon Valley, we've gotten so far away from one of the 4 key P's of marketing, which is product. All marketers got sucked into promotion over the last 10 or 15 years. If you know me, I've been bitching about this for the whole time. It's a distraction. Ultimately, we have to be focused on who is buying. What are we selling? And our job is to sort of match those two things together. And as a marketer, I don't want to work for a company that isn't solving a real problem. The best marketers in the world, you can't sell something that doesn't work. It's a waste of time and energy. And I'm frankly excited about AI and its ability to disrupt this ad tech cycle that we've been in for so long, which has created so much crap and distraction. So there you go, Jeremiah. Well, we can have the battle of the whatever bombasts.
Raising the bar for what is the meets minimum for content is the already immediate outcome. So Melinda, I think you're right. I think you have to really do something that's blue ocean and exhibits your expertise uniquely to differentiate, and to make your penis enlarger better than everyone else's. But yeah, that's the meets minimum. That's the standard. So a lot of the 1 cent, 2 cent content agencies are gone already.
I dare say not a moment too soon. As an agency owner myself, I dare say not a moment too soon, because it's just going to be a race to the bottom price wise. It's one of the reasons I wound down parts of my firm, as I could see where we were going.
All right, up next we have Marcia. You have a comment or a question?
Yeah, all that is great. What I want to understand is, how does it fit with those companies that want a calendar of postings? Because a set calendar, when I see that in a job description, because I'm looking for a job right now, I just run away, because if you have a calendar, it means I have to create something. And if I don't have anything to say, I still need to publish. And this is what I literally 3 years at Amazon without touching my email. I have 79,000 emails to clean up from my mailbox. And when you put them together, you see companies, they are just filling a calendar. I mean, I would love to have them still be signed, but a posting or two a week that doesn't add any value? No. I always say, if you want to have your content read, have anything to add. If you don't have anything to add, do not publish to meet a calendar date. And that's when I don't get the job because I am forcefully like, I won't say, if it's not adding, I won't say. If it's not adding value, I'd rather skip that date. How do you feel about that with the AI right nowadays? I honestly, I was talking about that product with a friend of mine. She just went to ChatGPT and said, how does steel work? And ChatGPT, even though it's 2 years old, gave the entire scope, price, and everything. So I don't see those calendars anymore being something. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I work with lots of teams, and content operations is still a big hurdle. And what I like for them to tag, I like to tag the purpose with each page. Is it part of a collection, and the why? So is it cluster content? Is it, who is it for? It's traditional brief work, but making sure that that maps to my content calendars, but leaves a room for reactive or situation specific content, like where I'm doing something because of a reason, before a reason, but they always have cluster development content on calendars, especially if they require one. And that's something that's kind of an always on motion for them. This would be even for news organizations. So I work with a large news publisher in entertainment, and they have always on content that they classify as evergreen to support their fast moving news cycles. So regardless of how you're classifying those things, I think if they need a calendar, you can define it. It's just because you're always going to be in a situation where you could do it all right now. It's just, can you actually get that done? But there are situations that's a common situation that I run into, whether they're using Asana, Basecamp, or whatever. They have to have that calendar always live. I don't know if that helps.
I agree on having a calendar and keeping tight for updating. Your content is your content. We need to read every week or so and make sure it's up to date. But making a publishing just because it is Wednesday and you were supposed to publish something, find something meaningful to say. That's how I say. If you don't have, don't say.
Agreed. And we are out of time. So Jeff, thanks so much for the presentation today. If you want to learn more about Jeff and his company, you can visit marketmuse.com. And we are at the same time the next 2 Thursdays on Zoom. So look out for our next 2 events. Everyone take care and learn about AI because it's important.
Thank you for hosting this, and thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much.